This is an animated to-do list app, and with this app you can easily add new tasks by just typing here and then clicking the add option. I have added 3 items to the to-do list. You can check all your to-dos from this list given below, and once you have completed each one of them, you can just click here to add them as completed, and once you have completed each one of them, you can just click this X mark to delete each to-do. This is a very simple and a cool project. Let's quickly see how we can build this. And here is the HTML page where we will write our HTML code, and inside the assets folder you will find 2 more folders. One would be CSS, where we will be writing all our CSS code inside this style sheet, and then inside the JavaScript folder we will have the script.js, inside which we will be writing all our JavaScript code. We'll start off with our HTML part of the web page. Let's open this on a live server. First create a div called container, and inside this div we'll need to create another div called to-do app, and inside this we'll need an h2 tag that will say to-do list. You can give this any name you want. Then create a div called row. Inside this we'll add an input with a type of text. The ID will be input box. The placeholder can be anything. I'll just enter here as add your to-dos, and below that we'll add a button here that has a role of button, and in here let's type add, and after this we'll add a small icon here which will add a plus icon. I'll show you what this looks like in a bit. And then in here you need to type on click and then add a task function. We still haven't created this function. We will be creating it in the JavaScript section. And below this you'll need to create an unordered list which will have an ID of list container. We'll just add some dummy data here, and with that our HTML part is all done. Let's quickly check how it looks like on the live server. And this is what it all looks like in the live server. We still haven't added any styles yet. Now let's do that. Go to the style.css file and then come down here. First we'll be styling the container. You also need to add a few lines for the body element as well. I will speed run through the entire CSS part so that we can quickly jump into the JavaScript section. Inside the to-do app styles, this will style this to-do container, and this will be the hovering effect for it. And inside the heading styles, this will style the heading, and this will style the icon that is next to the heading. And this would style the row container, and this would style the input field inside the row, inside which we'll be writing our to-dos. And this would style the color of the placeholder that we can see on the input field. And this is the styling we'll be giving to the add button inside the to-do list. And below that we'll be adding the hovering effect for the button, which will look like this. And then we'll add the active state for the button, and this would style the icon right next to the button. This will mainly be used to like set margins. We won't be styling much of it. And then we can come down to the list item styles. This will style the UL, and this would style the list item inside the UL, and this would give us a circle. After you enter to do, it will be shown in a list. Inside that list there will be a circle. This is the Unicode for that circle, which is a font or some icon. I'll show you what this looks like in a bit. And this will be the icon that would be visible once you click the check mark on each to do that you complete. And this span is for the X mark that you can see on each to do, which will be used to delete each item. And lastly, this will be used to set colors for the span which is inside the list, such as we'll be giving it hovering effects. Mostly all these would be depending on the colors. Now let's see how it looks like on the web. And there is one small issue. All these stuff should be going inside the to-do list. It has come outside. Let's see what the issue is.
A few moments later.
Okay, so this row and this list container, all of this should be going inside the to-do app. I unfortunately have made it outside. Now let's check the web version. Yes, now everything looks correct. From here you can type your to-dos, then you can click the add button here. This is what a task would look like once the check mark is added, and in these ones we still haven't added a check mark, and the X mark is also missing, and we will be adding all of that in the JavaScript section right now. Just make sure to remove this part. This part will be left empty, as this will be dynamically listed as you add new to-dos to the list. First we'll create the DOM element variables, and this can be used to get the element with the ID list container, and then it will assign it to the task list container, which is this variable, and then another variable called task input box. This will select the input box element. Now we'll create the function to add a task to the list. First we'll add the function keyword and then add task. And if you remember, this is the add task functionality that we'll be calling once the button is clicked. We just added an on click setting to the button when we created the HTML page, if you remember. and inside this we'll have an if statement that checks if the input box is empty. If the value is empty, then it will alert. It will basically say please enter any text before you submit. This only would be shown if you click the add button without a text inside the text box, the input box, and else if there was text inside it, we will then process it to add it to the list. And to do that, we'll create a new variable here called new task that will create a new list item element, and then on this new task we will set the text content to be equal to the text box value we provide once we add a new to do. And then below that we will take the task list container and then append child, then add new task. This appends the new list item to the task list container, and then another variable to delete the task. It will just create a span element for that delete button, which is that X mark I just mentioned earlier. And then in here we'll need to set the text content to equal to this value. This is the Unicode symbol for the value of X. Let me just add a comment here. This is the X mark you will be seeing when you want to delete an item, and this will set the style of the delete button to align it to the right hand side for each task we create. And then we pass the append child again on the new task, inside which we'll pass the delete button variable. This will append the delete button to the new list item we create. And like the comment says, this will clear the input box after adding the task. And then in here we'll be calling a function called save task. We are calling this function to save the current state of the task list. And now we will create that function here called save task, which will take the local storage and then set item here as task, and this will save the init.html of the task list container to the local storage under the key tasks. And once we save that, we need a way to display the saved task list from the local storage. So we will create function, then load task, and this would retrieve the saved task list HTML from the local storage, and then it sets it as the init.html of the task list container. And then below that, we can now go to the event listener to handle the task click events, which means the toggle as well as the delete option. And then we add an event listener here for each click. The E in here refers to an event. In here we'll have an if statement that will take the event. This basically checks if the clicked element is a list item, and if it is true, it toggles the check class on the clicked list item. And then we'll again call this save task function. This will be used to update the saved task list, which is stored in the local storage of the browser. And we are using local storage here because we are not using a full stack project for this. We are not having a separate database, so the only database that we use here is your browser. So if you remove the cache, all your to-dos will be gone, so make sure to not do that. And this one checks if the clicked item is a delete button, which is the span we created, that X mark, and this would remove the parent list item of the click delete button. And as before, we will call the save task function again to update the saved task list. Now let's quickly load the task function. What this does is it calls a load task function to load and display the saved task from the local storage when the page is loaded. Now let's have a look at what the web page looks like right now. We'll just type here hello world and then click add. Alright, so we don't see our text here. The to-do has been added, but we do not see our text here. Let's see what the issue is.
A few minutes later.
Okay, so I found the issue. It was a very simple one. We just need to add 3 equal signs here. This usually means strictly equal in JavaScript. Now let's see if it's all working fine. We'll just delete this one and then type again. And then click add. And now you can see the to-do item. Let's add one more here. And again, we are now able to see all the to-dos we create by clicking the add button. But still, there is one small part left to do, which is once you add a to-do list here, clicking the enter button should be able to add that to-do to this list. Let's quickly finish that off. Now we just need to come down here and then type task input box and click the add event listener. In here we type key down, and using the event, we'll be using a callback function here. Inside this, we'll be using an if statement where the event.key is strictly equal to enter, which is the enter button on our keyboard. And if it is true, it checks if the press key is enter. It will call the add task function, and basically, like calling the add task function will add a new task. And with that, we have finally completed the JavaScript section of this to-do list app. Now let's check the finished project. And this is what this finished project of this to-do list app looks like. We have all the functionalities we just discussed. We also have the same to-dos here. We can just add one final list item here. This is something all of you should pay attention to, which is, and clicking the enter option will create that list item. And please make sure you do this. And with that, we have come to the end of this video. Please make sure to subscribe to stay updated with all my videos just like this one. And also check this link that you see on the screen right now to go to the video where I have created a digital clock using pure JavaScript with a dark mode. I'll see you there.